the main gist of this whole thing when it comes to design thinking, well, it's some people call it a mindset, some people call it a methodology, some people call it all sorts of things when it comes to a design process to solve some creative or creatively solve some of the issues for the business, the services and the products. And I guess all of that is pretty relevant and right to an extent. But I found that through the commercial application of the actual process itself, or the methodology as it stands, I found a few things that are missing in the process itself. And when you look at any standard design thinking methodology process, it actually shows up as being, let me just break down, and maybe I'll take a white color over here. It actually starts somewhere around here and finishes somewhere around here. I'm going to use actually a pink one so you can actually see it better. It actually starts somewhere around here and finishes somewhere around here. So it starts with the customer perspective. So we go and empathize with some users, customers, people that are, kind of on the backbone of the business or customers of that business. So we empathize with those people. Then we move straight into defining the problem. I call those problems design challenges because I want them to be positively defined rather than calling it a problem. I've heard that problem is the most used Polish word in the Polish language. This is pretty interesting. Then we move on, once we define the problem, into the actual ideation to generate as many solutions as possible. And that's something we'll be kind of covering today with the cool tool that we've provided for you and kind of prepared the canvas for you as well. Those ideas that are the best, we then prototype with any means necessary, and then we go straight into testing to actually validate if the prototype delivers on the promise that it should be delivering, the value for that end customer, that end user, whatever we're designing or whoever we're designing for. And this is the standard way the design thinking process is built. And I'll just maybe use a different color and kind of highlight this thing. And this is like standard design thinking process. And it's great. I mean, it forms the core of the actual process that we use. But the problem that I see when I'm applying it commercially is that it's not. I believe that the process is wrapped around the end user, definitely. I mean, the end customer or the service recipient, that's a definite, right? So I want to put that person in the middle of the process and solve their issues or fulfill their needs. But it doesn't begin and end with that. It puts them in the center of that process. But the beginning and the end of this whole thing, it doesn't start with the customer and doesn't end with the customer. To me, it starts with the actual business and it finishes with the business again. So that's why we've added this business hypothesis step to the entire standard design thinking process. It's been developed in, in the 50s and the 60s, the standard one, but currently I feel that it's lacking this specific aspect. So we want to add that specific element, and we're calling it business hypothesis mapping. We've covered that heavily in our previous vlogs, webinars, etc. But if you want me to dive into that, definitely give me a shout out and I'll be happy to respond with vigor. But that's the business hypothesis, and that's where we define why this whole service is there, or why we're here as designers to solve some issues, for whom, and what we should be covering as far as the areas are concerned. So that's something we needed to add to create a very detailed and a very understandable brief for the designer to start off the understanding phase of the actual process, so that we make sure that we fully understand the business side, the customer side, and once we've collided those two together, we then find true design challenges, not just the ones that are hurting the customers. So that's that. And that's the first part that we added. And the other part that we added is the impact delivery. And that's solving the issue for the business as it stands. Because usually when a designer leaves the table, so we've designed some cool prototypes, we've put them in front of our customers or our clients that pay the designers for their work, we're actually creating the problem, not solving it for the business, because we've created this cool prototype, we've created this great solution, and now the business is left to actually implement it. And very often, in my experience, is that we're leaving them with a problem, because we're not showing them or actually validating if they have the capabilities to do it, if they have the knowledge to do it, if they have the experience to do it, if they have the know-how, if they have the processes, the tools, and the methodologies implemented within the organization to actually make those things happen. So that's where the impact delivery step is added to the process itself, and that's what we always do to help out all of our clients with whatever we leave them with as far as the prototype is concerned, so that they know exactly, that they know how to actually implement it, what to look out for, what are the business goals they're going to be achieving through that implementation, and what is the overall arching outcome that we're trying to achieve. And that's pretty much, you know, the gist of this whole design thinking process as we developed it over the years, and the steps that we've actually added to it to make it more commercially applicable and have more impact on the actual design work that we're doing. So that's that. Any questions, guys, by the show of hands? Is that understandable? Pretty common sense, right? Yeah, by the show of hands, cool, or awesome. That's great. Any questions arise, just give me a shout. So that's that. And today what we want to be covering is the ideation stage. One cool tool for the ideation stage, and we're going to be covering a cool tool called association. I always think of the association. I think that's how you write it, pyramid. And since it is a little bit late today, so this is the perfect method for this particular time. The latest that I've ran this actual method on a workshop was 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. with one of the, it was like founders of one of the apps, and you know, people with a lot of kind of experience and knowledge, etc. A lot of the founders and a lot of investors, and it was like 7:30, and we needed to generate some ideas. So we've used this specific method because it wakes people up. It's pretty cool to do. So let's break it down. What I'm going to do is actually show you the canvas itself, if there are no questions, and we can try and make this thing happen. So just bear with me. Let me open up the design thinking at night. Association pyramid canvas. So I don't know if you've ever used Mural app as it stands here. It's a pretty cool thing to actually do remote workshops on. We've used maybe like 2 different software solutions for that. Mural is one of them, Miro is the other one. And we've been experimenting with Jamboard recently, but Jamboard is provided by Google, as you probably know. It's pretty kind of slim when it comes to the size of the canvas, and the interaction is pretty limited as well. So I think that kind of working with Mural, we found a lot of benefits doing that. So what I'm going to do is share a link to you guys. You can actually anonymously get onto the Mural, and we can kind of, I'll show you the mechanics of the tool, and then we can actually break down some of the elements and have some fun with it. Yeah, what do you say, guys? Is that all right if we just do that? Cool, let's do it. So step number 1 is going to be the word that we're going to be associating with today, because that's what it all starts. It all starts with one word. And I would use a word called lockdown. Is that a good word to associate with today? What do you guys reckon? Lockdown. I'm sure that we're all kind of fed up with the lockdowns of today as it stands, and we can just try and kind of associate with it. So I'm going to send you the link now within the Zoom chat, so you can actually link and kind of click on it. So let's just share that. Let's do a copy link, anonymous link. Copy link, copied. That's awesome. Go to Zoom, and I will use the chat. So I think that if you click on the link in the actual chat of the Zoom app, you'll be able to actually, I'll be able to see some of you actually on the canvas itself, and you'll be able to see me at the same time. All right, I can see an anonymous horse, whoever that is. Okay, that's Chris, that's cool. So Agnieszka and Jacek as well, I guess. There's gonna be like 3, 4 or 5 of us, just to have some fun. All right, I can see some of you on this thing. And the first kind of step into this whole ideation method is very loose associations with the word that the moderator, who is me today, is giving to the actual team. So the way that we do it is I can color this this word into maybe darker purple. So this is the word. I'll name this the starting word. Oh, come on. Starting word. And this is going to be called the lockdown, right? So we're going to start with lockdown. And what we need to do is each one of us individually, so just the canvas is pretty big, so there's enough room for everyone, I'm sure. So what we need to do now is just take, if you double click anywhere, it's going to actually create a post-it note that you can write on. And what I would like to invite you to do is generate 5 very loose associations with the word lockdown. So I'll give you an example. To me, the loose association is, obviously I'm at home, so to me, home. These associations should be nouns, and they shouldn't be any kind of personal personal names, for so to speak. So instead of John Paul II, or you should say the Pope, right? So that's the difference. We don't want any personal names here. We just want nouns and something that's very loose association with the word lockdown. So if you can, guys, just find any kind of space around the canvas itself, just start clicking around. And what we want to do, I'll give you like 3 minutes for that specific exercise. If you can generate 5 loose associations, I'll do the same thing also. 5 loose associations with the word lockdown. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It just as simple. The first thing that pops into your head, sometimes it's not even related to the word, but it's just a loose association. So I'll go and do that as well. Let's give ourselves maybe 120 seconds and just generate 5 associations, each one on a separate card, a separate post-it note. I'm gonna go with it. Craziness, home, craziness, family, elder, because of the elder, and medication. Right? I'm pretty much done, so I'll give you some time. Don't give it too much thought. Just go crazy with it, and just do it. Hello, Sheen Melikan. If you want to join us, definitely do so. We've just started. There's a link in the chat of the Zoom call. If you click that link, you'll have access to the to what I'm actually showing, to the canvas itself on Mural app. So definitely do that and join us in this in this endeavor. All right, that's cool. Let's do that. I'm actually gonna maybe stop sharing the screen because you can then focus on that thing. All right. Okay, has everybody generated? I see like there should be like maybe something around 20 post-it notes. All right, cage, zoo, airport, police. That's okay. That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. All right. I can see that there's some compulsiveness going on. Everybody wants to keep their post-it notes aligned and perfect. That's like me. So we have that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 15 different associations. So now we can basically move on to our pyramid. But before we actually get to that step, what I wanted to propose is we can actually change the color of some of those. So if you click on any post-it note, kind of a little menu shows up. I'll share the screen actually so I can show it to you. This one. So when you click on any post-it note, it actually shows up a little menu, so you can actually change the color of that. So I would like for you to pick, there's 3 of us, 15, maybe 2 or 3 associations, but let's start with 2 for the sake of this exercise. Let's start with the 2 craziest associations that you feel are the craziest out of the ones that you've generated. So out of the 5 associations you've generated with, change the color to, I don't know, maybe purple or something, that you think that's the craziest, the most strange one that you came up with. So just do that. So it's elder, I'm gonna go with elder and maybe medication. Medication. All right, so that's that. And there's one more missing, okay, with blueness, that's great. And one more, okay, so we have the sadness, meditation, medication, elder, airport, and basilisk. It's just fucking crazy. All right, so that's where this whole fun starts. So just to recap the method itself, we start off with a pretty random word. I always connect this word to something that I'm trying to solve, a design, a company kind of structure, something that is relatable-ish to the design project. Then I ask everybody around the table to generate 5 loose associations to it. And on that basis, there's, just bear with me, there's a chat. There is a link, just bear with me. There you go. There is a link right there, Sheen Melikan. There you go. So let's just wait for Sheen Melikan to join us. No worries at all. Jump in. Jump in. And let's just break it down with Sheen as well so that we can have more fun. And again, so we generate a very loose association with something related to the project, to the company we're working for, something. Then we ask each participant of the workshop to do it like we're doing it remotely. Usually when I was doing it, it wasn't remote, but now it's just a case of asking people to generate 5 loose associations with that specific word, and then picking 2 or 3 craziest ones, depending on the amount of people you have around your table. You pick 1, maybe, you pick 2, just to fill the basis of the pyramid. And let's just give give Sheen a little bit of time to generate his. We're generating associations, very loose associations to the word lockdown, Sheen. So if you want to generate very loose 5 associations, like I did, for example, I've generated like home, craziness, family, elder, and medication. So these are the 5 associations I came up with. You can definitely just use your own imaginations. And these are very loose associations with the word. So don't overthink it, just generate meditation, that's cool. It's kind of another one. Faith, that's cool. All right. 3 more to go. Hope, cool. And 2 more to go. That's awesome. Perseverance. And 1 more. Whatever pops into your head, don't overthink it. Just fire away. Humanity, awesome. So now pick the 2 craziest ones out of the list. What do you think that, how did I get there? These are these kinds of associations. You're like, I don't know, how did I come up with that? What do you think? So just pick the 2 top choices for you that are the craziest possible, and just change their colors, for example, or move them down, that's fine. You can change their colors to blue, pink, purple, anything that would highlight them as being the craziest ones. So that's the humanity, that's cool. If you click on the actual thing, you can then change the color right here. So there's like a little menu that shows up, and you can then change the color. So humanity. And is there anyone else that you would like to pick? Hope, faith, perseverance. That's all right. So we have hope. Awesome. And then we can change the color of that one as well. All right, cool. So now if I just kind of zoom out, and I'll move all of those down, so we can have, just move them down so we have all of our beautiful, colorful Post-it notes in one place. And the way that this works, because we now generated very loose associations with our main word, which is lockdown, we can now build the basis of the pyramid. So that's the 3rd step of this tool. So the first one is, kind of generating associations first, picking the craziest ones, and then moving them to the pyramid itself. As you can see, it actually is pretty cool because we have 8 spots for the pyramid right there. So on the left-hand side, you can see the pyramid right there. And we have our crazy Post-it notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and put all of them in a random order into this thing. Airport, we'll go medication, we'll go, let's do meditation right next to it, and humanity, and basilisk. And this formed the kind of the basis, the foundation of the pyramid itself. And that's where the real fun starts. Because now what we're going to be doing is I'm going to ask each one of you in a subsequent order to generate a very loose association. The trick is to just keep it going, like, let it go, let it flow. Just bear with me. I'm just going to go, and I want to see your beautiful faces. I'm open up the chat right there. All right. So all we need to do now is basically pick one by one. So I'm going to start with maybe, let me see who's out there. Let me just see that the chat is there. And I've lost you guys. Okay, cool. I can see you. So there is Natalia German as well. That's great. Welcome to the show, Natalia. I'm going to give you a link to the canvas itself. All right. So Jacek, Sheen, Chris, Agnieszka, Natalia, let's break this down. What we're going to be doing is, the best thing to do it is do it individually first. So we can then generate individually first. So I'm going to start with Agnieszka. Agnieszka, which color are you on the actual mural app? Are you the green horsey, or are you the lion, or let's see this. You don't know. Just generate an
I don't know who I am.
Okay, no, a lot of comments, no worries. Okay, so, but let's, we're going to see.
But my post-its are the blue ones.
All right, cool. But first, let's then start building the pyramid. The way that it works, I'm going to show you the first example, and then we're going to go with Agnieszka, Chris, Sheen, and Natalia and Jacek if they want to join. But we're just going to keep it in between our four of ourselves since you are on the screen. But I think Natalia just joined as well. So we're going to do, and I'm going to go with the first one. So hope and elder. And we generate a loose association between those two words. What is the first association that pops into my head when I think about hope and elder? And it's very loose. So I'm just going to go with hospital, right? And that's the first association that I generated thinking about hope and elder. I don't know why hospital came up and I just put it in. So now it's time for Agnieszka to put it in. So we've got elder and sadness. So what is the first thing that pops into your head when you think about elder and sadness? Don't think about it too much, just because we're going to be stuck here for the rest of the night. So just type it in over here with that post-it note, and off we go. The next one is Chris. So you have sadness and airport, and then we have Sheen, and that's airport and medication. Then we have medication and meditation, which would be for Natalia. Natalia, are you on the actual? I'm looking at the chat. All right. So Natalia has left us. No worries at all. We'll get it done. So medication and meditation, that's me, right? So I'm going to go LSD. I'm going to go LSD. I don't know why, but LSD popped into my head. So the next one is Agnieszka. That's meditation and humanity. All right. Just go with that one. Then we have humanity and basilisk, and I believe that's Chris. Then we have hospital and forgetfulness, and that's Sheen. And then we have, then it's me again. So it's forgetfulness and missed flight. Oh man, I'm gonna go airline claim, or claim itself. Claim. Then it's Agnieszka again, and that's missed flight and well-being. And Chris, you've got well-being and LSD, which is, you know, possible. It's totally doable. Happy, that's cool, happiness. Then we have LSD and relief. Now that's pure happiness altogether. And then we have Sheen, you have relief and sculptor. That's so cool. All right, I'll give you some time to explore. All right, that's center. And LSD and relief, who's that? Was that you, Chris? Or was this Sheen? Just type anything in.
Mine was happiness, so
all right,
I was the previous one.
So we'll go with the next one, and that's illness and claim, and that's me. And I'll go, I'm gonna go insurance. We're doing a lot of design work for insurance lately, so let's do that. Then we have claim and vacation, that's for you, Agnieszka. Then we have vacation and happiness for you, Chris. Happiness and addiction, that's for you, Sheen. And addiction and center, that's me, and that's, I'm gonna call that alcoholic. I don't know why, but I'm gonna type that in. There you go. Air help, that's cool. We have photos and happiness and addiction. I believe that's you, Sheen. So just type in anything that kind of comes up, and you can combine happiness and addiction. And okay, so I've done alcoholic, so now it's you, Agnieszka, and that's you over here. So you've got insurance and air help. Then Chris, you have air help and photos. And Sheen, you have photos and high. High being a noun, not an adjective. And I have alcoholic and high. That's all right. That's all right. I'll come up with something. A rush. To be honest with you guys, because it's very kind of We've got mug shots, memories, and rush, and money here. Very often when you do these kind of live, you always get into these rough areas of thought. There's always like prostitutes here, car chases, money laundering, a lot of crime involved, etc. It's pretty cool because it actually kind of lets people go to do whatever they want. So rush, that was me. And now, last but not least, we've got 5 left. So that's money and mugshot, that's for you, Agnieszka. Then we have mugshot and memories for you, Chris. Then we have memories and rush for you, Sheen. And the last but not least, well, the second last is me, and that would be something, whatever you can come up with. All right, so we have happiness, memories and rush. We have party out of the mugshot and memories, and we're waiting for Agnieszka to come up with the money and casino. That's cool. And then casino and party, memory loss. I'm gonna go with memory loss. And then we have party and happiness, and that's for you, Agnieszka, to put in. So that's that, and that's where we stop. So Agnieszka is going to put in the last one. This is where for that trouble. Okay, so now we have the 2 last words, which are the memory loss and trouble. And this is the last. You always get into these things. This is actually pretty like not rough as I was expecting it to go. But when you run these things, you do it individually first. So you build kind of the recap. We've started off with the word lockdown, and then we asked the participants to generate 5 very loose associations. We picked the 2 craziest ones. We've built the bottom of the pyramid, and on that basis started to generate pairs of associations to build the pyramid all the way to the top. And we ended up with, and we do it individually. So we give everybody a chance to actually use their own kind of train of thought to come up with a very loose association using those 2 words. And then we have memory loss at the very end and trouble. And the last association should be a group call. So it should be a conversation, a discussion with all the team members that everybody is happy with, so that they can actually generate something and everybody's like thumbs up, yeah, this is what I want. I fully agree. This should be the last association. And again, this should be not a personal name. It should be a noun, and it should be, yeah, that's pretty much the 2 rules. Not a personal name and a noun. So, so should we go with Sheen? What do you reckon should be the last kind of association between the memory loss and trouble? What is the first thing that strikes you? And it needs to be a noun and nothing personal. Same goes for you, Chris and Agnieszka. If you could just put out a post-it note with the last association that you would use, right somewhere around here, and see what we come up with. I'm going to go with memory loss and trouble. I'm going to go with surgery myself, but I'll leave you to it. So whatever you want to or think about. So memory loss and trouble. Movie, that's cool. Hangover, that's cool. That's all right. That's all right. And then we have Sheen and Chris. Chris, you've already put one, yeah? All right. Okay, that's hangover, that's yours. And then we are still waiting for Sheen. You type that one in. What that could be. All right, train of thought has started moving. All right, all right, all right. Let's give us a few minutes. And all right, happy. It would have to be happiness if you want that, because it needs to be a noun, not an adjective. All right, so that's happiness. All right, so now let's maybe do a voting session. So name your session, number of votes per person. I'm gonna give each one maybe like 2 votes, so we can like put 2 dots against any member of this mural. And let's do a next. And there you go. And click a card to add a vote, guys. Shift to click, shift plus click to actually remove a vote. And your vote is anonymous. So let's begin voting. So I'm gonna go with whatever I'm gonna go. And this one. So just start clicking around, guys, and the votes should be kind of coming in. So whatever card you kind of click on, it's going to generate a dot, and this way we can actually vote on the cards themselves. I don't know if you can see that. So 4 people already voted. Votes left, that's cool. So, and the voting session. So the highest results is the hangover, which is awesome. Which is awesome. I voted on that one as well. So we can then move that hangover to the very top. And that's the last association that we came up with. So when you think about the word lockdown, the first word that we actually started off, and the word we ended up with, which is hangover, that's a leap that you would never be able to kind of comprehend or get to without the specific tool itself, without using the pyramid of association. And because our brains are now kind of into this association mode, it's a little bit easier for us to now come up with some crazy, different, strange ideas when it comes to using the associations with the word hangover to generate ideas. So this is where the creativity or the actual ideation of or generating ideas actually start. And that's where we use the last word of the pyramid, which is the hangover. We use that to solve the problem at hand. And the problem that I wanted to kind of highlight for today is something. I'm going to type that in, and how might we, if you want to use the Google kind of design sprint element, so how might we I want to go with the elderly, or with the older guys that are actually stuck at home and kind of struggling with the time that they have. What do they do? So how might we make the lockdown of older people more enjoyable? So that would be the how might we. And this is the problem that I would put, or a challenge that I would put at the very top of this thing. And on that basis, try to come up with 6 ideas. As you can see, there's like 6 different places here. And so if anyone, or if all of us can generate like one idea for this specific thing, using the associations with the word hangover. So hangover, there's headaches, there's a lot of alcohol, there's partying. So to me, obviously, when it comes to hangover, the first idea that I would, put out there would be create or kind of I wouldn't say create, but I want them to party. I want them to be try to come up with something that would allow for those older guys to actually go back maybe in time, put a disco ball inside the house, and actually do some dancing around the house to a special Spotify playlist generated specifically for this purpose. So that's my idea. I would actually, come up with a list of songs from the 50s and 60s maybe, and build a list on Spotify together and put it out there, create some sort of a, way to actually make those guys, and try, to kind of convince them to do a little bit of dancing around the house. So now you guys just generate any 5 different ideas using the association with the word hangover. So partying, drinking, having fun, all of everything that relates to that, all the broken bones in the body, and then just put them on the canvas itself right there. I'm going to give you a few minutes for that, and definitely have fun with it. I'm just going to see if there's anything happening in the chat. All right. Okie dokie. All right. Shin, I see that you had a question. Okay, you were actually talking to CP. Okay, no worries at all. I'm actually gonna send the link to CP as well, so that they have access to the mural itself as well. All right. So we have the biggest apartment in the building for a great party. That's awesome. So we have a cool quarantine quarantine kind of section of the house. That's awesome. Watch movies during that time. That has party vibes. That's awesome. Give them alcohol, something stronger to drink. That's pretty cool. Yeah, we'll open up their veins and make their hearts pump a little bit more blood into the system. And that's pretty much the gist of the exercise, guys. So the way, when I use this tool, it doesn't generate a lot of different ideas. It doesn't generate like, you know, hundreds of ideas in a session. It takes quite a lot of time. Do the casino party, that's awesome. Play some poker. I'm gonna add poker to the thing. Play poker. Play poker. You know, money involved. Let's do something illegal with the elders. So when I use this tool remotely, obviously, but when I do it and I use it in a workshop, it doesn't generate a lot of ideas. But the ideas that it does generate are pretty unique, pretty, you know, interesting. Something that is not kind of outside of something that would, a simple brainstorm, you would never get to those kind of ideas, you know, because when we come up with how might we lock down, or how might we make the lockdown for older people a little bit more enjoyable, you know, you wouldn't get to the do the casino party. You know, that would be a huge stretch to actually get to that kind of an idea. And this tool, that's why this tool is very powerful, because it's very kind of methodical, it's very mechanical. Because you start with a word, you then generate 5 associations, you pick the craziest ones, and then you just start building the pyramid. That's why this tool is pretty cool, because it wakes people up, it's fun, it's easy to actually come up with those associations. Now, the crazier the group, like ourselves here, the better the results, and the more crazy the results, and the craziest ideas can then happen. So that's definitely something that I would encourage you guys to use, and let us know what you think. You know, when you start using those kind of methods. So yeah, so that would be pretty much a wrap, guys. It's like 20 minutes to 9. Okay, so there's a question from Agnieszka. So do you reveal the problem at the end of the exercise? That depends. I've done that today so that we were not focused on the actual problem, and I wanted to keep it as loose as possible. But obviously, when you come to the ideation session, kind of to recap the process itself, you have a whole list of, let me just go and get rid of that. I'm just going to erase that. When you get to this ideation session, ideation stage, you obviously have a whole list. Just go this one. You have a whole list of design challenges to solve. So you obviously know what you're coming into this session with. So therefore, I would, you know, you already have those challenges to solve. So then you can put them up and kind of look at them to start with. But it doesn't really matter if they come up at the very beginning of the exercise, in the middle of it, or at the very end of it. It's all about the tool itself and creative people that are actually using it to come up with some crazy ideas when it comes to, yeah, generating some of those. So as you can see, you can do it remotely. I'm actually pretty amazed that we've done it so fast and so dramatically improving the flow of information. And I would like to thank you guys for participating and kind of being part of this. That's pretty awesome, pretty cool to be a part of as well. We've come up with some cool ideas as well for this particular problem. I have, you know, my parents are stuck at home, so I'm sure that they'll be happy to, you know, do a disco ball dance. Although my father, he hates dancing, whereas my mom loves dancing. So there's always been this thing on the parties that my mom was always dancing and the dad was always sitting down. She was always pissed off at him for that. But they've been married for 40 years over now, so I guess it doesn't matter to them that much. So that's pretty much a wrap, guys, when it comes to the tool itself, how it works, how to make this whole thing happen. And I'm looking at the chat intently for any questions. Okay, Sheena is asking, does each process have another design thinking exercise? You mean the process of design thinking, or a process that we're covering with these webinars, Sheen? Just so that I can do a little bit of a does each process have another design thinking exercise? Well, when it comes to the design thinking as a whole, I would say that, going back to this thing, the process really has steps. So as you can see, those steps here, we have the steps of creating the business hypothesis. Then we go to validate that hypothesis with some customers. Then we go, and after we've spoken to those customers, we can then synthesize that information into some design challenges. And then we can ideate or generate as many possible ideas to those challenges. We can then prototype the best ones, we can test them out, and then we can worry about how to implement into the environment of the business. And the exercises that we've covered, one of them, and that's ideation. So that's for generating ideas, and that's the association pyramid. Association pyramid. What? Pyramid. There are multiple different tools at each step of the process. So we have tools like design vision for design vision for the business hypothesis. We have SMART business goals. We have stakeholder mapping, etc. We have experience or hypothetical experience mapping. And all of those tools or all of those exercises are at the first step, for example. For ideation that we've covered today, we've covered the association pyramid, but there's like multiple different ways of generating ideas. There is the lotus flower, for example, which is a pretty cool method. It's more quantitative, so it generates around 60 to 80 ideas every half an hour. So it's a pretty cool method for volume of ideas, but not the quality of the ideas. I would say that association pyramid is very cool for the quality of the ideas. So depending on each step, there are different tools to kind of that kind of solve issues at each step of the way. So for your customer perspective, you've got some interviews, you've got online questionnaires, so you've got IDIs, online questionnaires, etc. For your design challenges, you can use 5Y, for example. For your prototyping, you can do low fidelity prototyping, and there are some methods associated with that. You can do some high fidelity prototyping. You can do elements related to mood boarding or storyboarding, etc., etc., etc. For testing, you have shadowing, you've got observations, you've got testing sessions, you've got even sessions when you sit down with people and kind of get feedback for the prototype in a group session. So there's a lot of different ways or different tools that we use on every step of the way. So that's how it all kind of corresponds when it comes to the process itself and the tools within it, right? Does that answer the question, Sheen? Staring at the chat intently. Awesome. Great. Guys, any other questions that you'd like me to answer? They can be personal to an extent, but is there anything that you'd like to cover or ask when it comes to design thinking, service design, UX design, UI design, experience design as a whole? How do I kind of cope with lockdown? I don't cope with lockdown. It's pretty difficult for me to cope with it. But any questions? No, actually at this step, when you're actually generating ideas, the quality of the idea doesn't really matter. So Chris is asking if we should take care about the quality of the ideas. And my response immediately, at the step when we're generating them, we want to make sure that people that generate the ideas have no criticism. So we want to kind of get into this, this mode of inner child, I call that. So I want people to be in this mode of, stop, when my daughter is 4.5 now. Well, she's going to be 5 pretty soon, actually. And when she's drawing something on a sheet of paper, she's not judgmental about it, and I am not judgmental either. And that's what I'm trying for the people around the workshop session to actually get to a mode like that, so that they don't care really at this step in time. They're just generating as much ideas as possible, as crazy as they can be, because this is the moment when we want to keep them as open and as easily generatable as possible. So that's what we want to get to. Within the ideation session, obviously, so right here, when we generate a lot of ideas, I'm going to go into maybe generating a new layer and getting rid of those scribbles. But to answer that thing in detail, I would say that there's like 3 stages to this whole ideation thing. So that's step number 1 for me. I'm gonna go maybe, I would go like with something like problem statement. So we have the design challenges or the problems from research, but what we want to do is make the people that are on the actual ideation session understand what the problem actually is. So we want to make sure that the problem statement is understandable to them, that they can actually understand what are we trying to solve here. So we want to kind of present some of the research behind it. So that's step number one. The second step is obviously ideation itself. So we want to generate and ideate and generate as many potential solutions as possible. And then three is prioritization. Prioritization. And when it comes to ideation, we have no criticism and we want to kind of keep it as open and generate as many ideas as possible. So no critics. But when it comes to prioritization, that's when we actually get into the whole assessment of the ideas. So we generate probably north of 200 to 300 ideas in one session, like, you know, maybe 2 hours or so. We will be generating 200 to 300 ideas. And then once we've generated those, what we need to do is take our child's cap off and put a kind of an older person or a parent hat on and start criticizing those ideas. And there are two main axes that I do the prioritization around. Let me just maybe try and move this a little bit to the middle. And there are two main axes that I use usually. I take all of those 200, 300 ideas and I take it one by one and I put them and kind of spread them over those two axes. And the first one that I use is obviously the customer or the end recipient of that service to start with. And I want to take each one of those ideas and see how much does this one idea solve the issue that we've highlighted as a problem or as a design challenge for that specific customer, right? And there's a cool concept that I always use, and that's for prioritization of anything ever. And people try to come up with some sort of a scale, and they try to come up with, you know, a scale, you know, very happy, you know, with some, you know, happy thoughts, then, you know, something like that over here. So kind of halfway through it, and then a frowny face at the very bottom. And to me, that's bullshit. It doesn't matter, you know, where is the tipping point between me being very happy and me being very sad. I don't really care where that tipping point is, and I don't want to have that conversation with the people on the workshop. So what I do is I get rid of this thing. I'm actually going to get rid of the other axis to start with. And I keep it all relative. What I do is there is 200 ideas and they're all written on separate post-it notes, right? So I've got like post-it notes right there and they're written on a separate post-it note. So what I do is there's one idea here, and what I do is I take that one idea and I stick it on the wall. And that first idea generates the axis that we're going to be prioritizing against. So I take the first idea, I put it somewhere in the middle, for example, and every subsequent idea that I put on top of this or on the wall when I'm prioritizing, it's either going to be more impactful. So it's either going to be this way. I'm going to use a different color, guys. Just bear with me. Like this one. So it's either going to be more impactful. So I'm going to put it on the right-hand side of that idea that I've initially put on the wall, or it's going to be less impactful. And if it is, I'm going to put it on the other side of that first idea. And then I take the next idea and the next idea, and every one of those is related to the ones right next to them. So I very quickly, you know, put the list together. If there's something that should be in between, I move this one to this side and I stick one in there. And I take each one of those ideas and I create that axis of ideas from the most impactful for the user, for the customer, so like this one, to the least impactful. And I don't care what is the scale. Is it Likert scale? Is it 4 levels, 5 levels? I don't care, because it's all relative to the first idea that I've put on the wall. So it doesn't matter which one I start with. It all matters which one I end with, which is the most impactful relative to whatever I've generated. Right? Is that understandable, guys? Yeah? Cool. So that's the first axis of prioritization. And then the second one is all about, again, sticking that axis anywhere. And the second one is I'm going to draw a a factory, because that's the ugliness of the business, right? That's the black business, that's the black mortar. And that's the second axis of prioritization to me. And that's either, there are two things when it comes to ideas. I usually use either the impact on the business goal that we could have, or the money it's going to cost, or the cash it's going to cost, or the resources it's going to cost to actually implement that idea into the market or into the company itself. So that's what I'm trying to come up with. So let's start with maybe let's maybe just do the cash one for this instance. So these are the dollars that it's going to cost us. And again, I have all of those ideas aligned perfectly when it comes to the impact for the customer. And now all I need to do is just move them either up or down when it comes to the cost of implementation. So each one of them, and again, they cannot be at the same level. They need to be kind of either, they need to be relative to each other. So each one idea is more costly than the other. And I always have that conversation. And there's always a conversation about, well, these two ideas are the same, and I don't know, it's going to be more costly because we don't know. When there is a discussion like that, I use 4 different attributes when it comes to kind of coming up with a price or kind of how much it's going to cost us to deliver this idea. And those 4 elements, the first one is how much resources. So resources, when I say resources, I'm actually meaning like process. So let's just break it down differently. The first one is like structural. So if I have a restaurant and I want to implement a new idea into the restaurant, I don't know, create another toilet, for example, it's going to be affecting the structural information or structural elements of the restaurant, right? So it's going to cost a lot of money because I'm going to have to, demolish the restaurant, close it down for some time. When it comes to IT, the structure means I need to integrate with some systems. I need to do something more structurally. I need more servers. I need something that's going to be costing a lot of money, and that's the structural element. So that's the first one. The second one is the process itself. So how difficult process-wise is it actually to implement this idea? Do we have the knowledge? Do we have the the expertise? Do we have our current processes that can actually handle that stuff? So that's the structural, the process. Then we have the elements related to kind of human elements, and that's people, right? So do we have the people that can do it? Do we have people with the right competences? Do we have enough people to do it as a company? And do we need to employ somebody? Do we need to buy that competence on the market? And that increases the cost pretty quickly. And the last one, if these 3 are not enough for some reason, there's one 4th element that I use to actually estimate the cost of one idea being more costly than the other, and that's implementation. Implementation versus maintenance. Right? Because some ideas, like, I don't know, a leaflet. I've got a restaurant and I'm going to be handing out leaflets on an old stand. And that's pretty easy to do, right? I mean, we can print out leaflets and just, fire away. But it's hard to maintain, because if I want to change something on that leaflet, I've printed out 25,000 different leaflets, and now I need to change the address for some reason, or a phone number. It's really hard to, edit it. So therefore it's really, a lot of effort to actually change that. So that's the 4th element that I put for the people to actually have a way to kind of validate if one idea is more difficult than the other. And that's the exercise of prioritization. So all of those ideas are moved up and down, and etc. Is that kind of understandable when it comes to the 3 steps? So we state the problem to the people so they know what they're fixing. We ideate with them using tools like association pyramid or any other tool. And then we prioritize those ideas with a critical hat on, looking at what's the best for the customer and what's the easiest to implement. And there are 4 quarters, just to finish up this whole thing, and I'll shut up. There are 4 quarters to this whole thing. And obviously, every idea that is the cheapest to implement and has the biggest impact on the customer experience should be obviously implemented as the first one. Not every time, but usually that's what we want to start with. So this is number one, right? So everything that has the lowest cost, so is at the very bottom and has the biggest impact on the customer experience. These are all the ideas that we want. There's gonna be a few ideas that end up in this sphere right there somehow, and therefore we will be implementing those first because they're the cheapest to do, and these are the biggest impact ideas, right? The second one is that's always debatable, and to me, it's always fix the issues for the customer, even if they cost a little bit more. So that's number two for me. So everything that is costly but still has a huge impact on the customer experience, that's what I would do next. The third one is obviously everything that is pretty cheap to do, but has the least impact on the customer experience. And the fourth one, I'm not even gonna draw a 4, I'm just gonna draw a bucket, because all of those ideas go to the bucket, we throw them out. And let me tell you one thing, this bucket contains around, depending on the business you're or a client you're working for, this bucket contains in between, I would say, 20 to 50 million euros worth of ideas. Implementing them, right? And these are the ideas that you're not implementing. So you're saving money. So you go back to your client and you're saying, guys, we've just saved 50 million bucks because we're not implementing those ideas because we know that they're too expensive to implement and they have no impact on customer experience. So let's just ditch them. And this is a huge impact when you're actually cutting those ideas out and you're like, this is it, guys. I mean, this is what we're not going to be doing. And that's pretty much the gist of this entire ideation step when it comes to, how to use those tools practically and how to apply that commercially on the projects themselves. All right? Awesome. Glad to hear that, Sheen. I'm really glad that you like that. I've spent so many times talking to CEOs, and when I told them that, we've just saved 50 million euros worth of ideas, and they're like, wow, that's great. And now we need 1 million to actually implement those other ones. And they're like, okay, well, we've saved 50, so, let's spend the one. And that's what it's all about. It's about common sense. It's about putting ideas in front of those business people so that they do commit and they give us the capability to actually implement some of those. And once you talk about, impact on the business and the customer experience itself, you very quickly change the perspective of you being a designer on a business meeting to a business partner at that very same business meeting. And the amount of times I've went through this exercise with some of our corporate clients is pretty remarkable, and it always works. So I really highly recommend that you guys take a stab at it. So that's cool. All right, is that understandable, guys? By the show of hands and the chat, awesome. That's perfect.